Welcome to 99th Monkey Liberty News for Wednesday, March 26th, 2014. I do have some news articles today, but there's also some philosophical information that I am putting out because I feel like it's really relevant to the news and what's going on. And I'm going to go in a little bit of a circle here. I decided this was where I wanted to begin this morning. This is from a Wikipedia article on anti-communism. The first major manifestation of anti-communism in the United States occurred in 1919 and 1920 during the first Red Scare led by Attorney General Alexander Mitchell Palmer. During the Red Scare, the Lusk Committee investigated those suspected of sedition, and many laws were passed in the U.S. that sanctioned the firings of communists. I'm not sure how constitutional that is. I'm not sure that goes along with the Bill of Rights. But that isn't my point here. I'm just addressing this because I want to go through the various scares that have been fed to the American people. And I think there's a certain degree of frustration, anxiety, and evil people want to tap into those emotions to accomplish their ends. And, of course, just the very idea of loose generation and releasing hatred and fear gives mileage to evil plans. But when they can direct our fears and our hatreds, they can use it to accomplish their goals, most of which is increase their money and power. But I really want to begin this morning by considering the fears that have been fed to Americans. And this is only as far back as my knowledge goes, without doing a whole lot of research. It might go back, and probably does go back even further than this. But I want to just address what I'm aware of. And I found this Wikipedia article as I was looking for something that would tie together these different fears that have been fed to us. And I wasn't completely able to do that, but I'm just going to name them. As we see, this was in 1919 and 1920, shortly after World War I. And I think that is the time, and perhaps it's only my lack of knowledge about history that is the reason for my believing this. But I believe that post-World War I was probably the first time these fears were, these flames of fear and anger were fanned intentionally to direct the energy of the American people into, so the military-industrial complex could make more money. And obviously this is 1919. This is post-Federal Reserve Act. So I think this was the time the noose was really tightening around the necks of Americans. So this first fear here was the Red Scare, the first Red Scare in this era. Then around the time of Hitler, of course, and we all know, people who follow the kinds of information that probably most people watching this video follow, are aware that these movements were financed, these things that the social engineers and the military-industrial complex have wanted Americans to fear, were financed by the same people who were fanning the flames of these fears at the top levels. So first, there was this communism scare. Then, of course, there was the Nazi scare when Hitler was in power. And that was the one that broke America out of its isolationism. Before World War II, we had kind of a loose commitment that we wouldn't participate in foreign wars. Well, the bombing of Pearl Harbor was used as leverage to get us to participate in World War II. And there we were. So we were afraid of Nazis. They were evil. They had to be stopped. We had to fight them. We had to throw our money and our lives behind the agenda. And again, the Nazis were financed by some of the same people who were fomenting war in the U.S., the U.S.'s participation in World War II. So the Germans were defeated, and at least ostensibly, of course, we know that many of the Nazis were brought to the U.S. and set up in posh positions through Operation Paperclip. So there we were, the Nazis were defeated. Now they had to feed us another fear, and that was what is known as the Second Red Scare. 1957, this was the era of the Cold War. The deepening of the Cold War in the 1950s saw a dramatic increase in anti-communism in the United States. See, there's that word anti. They want us to be against something. They want us to be afraid of something. They want us to hate something. And also the people who are associated with whatever the anti is, whatever it is they want us to hate. So we were fed this fear and hatred in this era during the Cold War. Then, the wall came down in Germany. The Soviet Union broke up. Oh, we needed a new thing to be afraid of. We needed a new thing to be anti. So suddenly it became the Muslims. And in the early 80s, I was in Christian groups who started to talk about how we need to defend Israel and how bad the Muslims are. And I mean, the silly thing is, on our part, there are these cycles. The fear of the Muslims was what was used to justify the Crusades. So, here we are, we get these things fed to us over and over again, and we still fall for them. Why? Why do we want to be anti this and anti that? I don't want to. I don't want my resources, the lives of my children and grandchildren, siphoned off to feed this beast. I mean, it's really like sacrificing to demons in a way, because it's this louche thing, this fear and hatred that feeds demons. I firmly believe that. So, and now, with refusal to go to war with Syria, this fear of Muslims has been wearing thin. Thank God. And I've mentioned even, people like George Soros are now funding Christian groups who are not anti-Muslim, are not anti-Palestinian, and that's an interesting shift. But he's just riding the wave, because that shift had already started. We already were seeing through that anti that was woven for us, that web that we were meant to be trapped in, so that the spider could suck our guts out. So the fear of the Muslims is beginning to fade, and again, we wouldn't go to war with Syria based on the fear of Muslims. It wasn't enough. So now all of a sudden we have to hate and fear. Well, who can they who can they pull out of their box? Oh yeah, the Russians. Because many people who are alive today lived through the Cold War, and we knew how evil the Russians were. Right. Well, now I do want to move into the news. From Infowars.com, former Blackwater mercenaries hired as political police in eastern Ukraine. Did we think that, the Ukraine being aligned with the EU was going to be a good thing, a positive thing? And they are, by the way, aligned with the EU. As Alex Jones likes to point out, 98% of Ukraine has been effectively taken over by the EU. It's only 2% that is being aligned with Russia. So effectively, what has happened is not that Russia has taken over Ukraine, but actually Russia has lost a good portion of Ukraine that they did have marginal control over before. And as I had the article yesterday, the lady who has been the Ukraine prime minister wants to nuke 8 million Russians that are left in Ukraine. These are not caring nurturers. Here's more evidence of that. New Ukraine government to citizens, turn in your guns by Friday. And this is from a website, Guns Save Lives. They sure do. But I'm not selling that idea right now. We all know that for ourselves, right? I won't pull out that map of the U.S., the map of the world that shows where the gun violence really is. So this is where the new Ukraine government really is. Are they freedom fighters? Are they defenders of true freedom, true liberty? Evidently not, because they want the citizens' guns. Moving on to, oh gosh, I hate this toenail ad. I'm probably going to black that out. I hate that ad. From A Sheep No More, Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 now clearly a government cover-up. All evidence contradicts official story. And I have been hearing this for a few days, but haven't mentioned it yet, and today seemed like a good time. From before its news, Rothschild takes down Malaysian airliner MH370 to gain rights to a semiconductor patent, getting rid of those who stood in his way. And this is not the only source for this. If you do a search, you'll definitely find other articles. This is for real. This really happened. And the story is that that Rothschild, in order to possess these patents, wanted to kill these people before the patent went into effect, because once the patent goes into effect, the inventor's heirs can benefit from the patent. As it stands, Rothschild will now own the patent, because the person died before the patent process was complete. And of course it was completed very soon after the inventor died. Ta-da! No big surprise there, right? So I have had these ideas about, the Ukraine and moving into the Rothschilds, basically just the social engineers, the people who want to run the world. And I'm moving to this new article from Fritz Springmeier on Mercy Triumphs. Who owns the future? And Fritz actually has a flow chart here of how decision-making processes are made by are gone through by the Illuminati. And as Fritz wrote, this post is revealing how the Illuminati make policy and what their new policy looks like. And so we can recognize where they're going, even as they make shifts, even as they begin to try to make us hate new people groups, even as they are, whatever they're doing. If we can understand and anticipate, we will be better prepared to resist. And I just want to get even a little more. I'm returning to Russia, and we're supposed to hate Russia. Well, going back into history, we can find something really interesting, and I have highlighted this in Start Page just for my ease of use, but this is a website that you can access, and it just has some deeper history of the Rothschilds and just some of the schemes that have gone on. And I'm addressing it now because surprisingly enough, and I was surprised to learn this because I grew up in the Cold War and Russia was the enemy, right? Wrong. At the time of the Civil War, the Tsar issued orders that if either England or France actively intervened in the American Civil War and helped the South, Russia would consider such action a declaration of war and take the side of President Lincoln. To show that he wasn't messing about, he sent part of his Pacific Fleet to port in San Francisco and another part to New York. Russian warships came here to defend the Republic. Now, okay, technically it wasn't the Republic because the Republic didn't have a quorum and they had already placed the U.S. corporate government. However, the Tsar opposed the Rothschilds, and you can probably guess that, yes, that had a lot to do with the Bolsheviks being put in a position so that they could overthrow the Tsar. But again, just some history here, some deeper history, some history a little further back with who is our real enemy. And if we can recognize who our real enemy is, we can be a little ahead of the game. And I just was thinking about this, wanted to put this in today. This is from Rumor Mill News, and you probably are aware of this. The Trinity of the city, the three city-states that control the Roman Empire. Washington, D.C., the City of London, Vatican City. These are three specially carved out jurisdictions set up to exploit covert legal tricks and tactics to rule the United States of America and its military. I think ultimately today I have endeavored to identify the true enemies of the American people. It ain't the Russians, okay? Now, they may have plans to dominate and control us. That kind of is, the nature of many nations, to try to overthrow other nations for whatever reason. I'm not defending Russia. I'm just issuing a little warning. Hey, can we please not get caught again in this generation of fear and hatred and this pressure to be anti. We have to be anti something. Okay, now we're supposed to be anti-Russia. Well, I'm not anti-Russia. I'm just putting that out there. And I think if more of us can resist becoming anti-Russia, we will be more empowered as a people and be able to recognize and resist the tyranny that is being pressed upon us. I did have, before I decided to get a little more deeply into this, I had some good articles chosen for today, and I'm just going to scroll through them. They're from tweets that I found, and I'll have these links in the notes on the website 99thmonkeynews.com. They probably won't all fit in the YouTube notes, but I will include them on the website. So I'll just scroll through LaRouche Pact, Pacific Orientation, the Eurasian System. Zero Hedge tweeted that Senator Reid will refund his campaign, and I actually have that. I have that link up because that's a part of our good news for the day. Believe it or not, I had to dig deep for good news. From Sybil Edmonds, eye-opener video report, The Psychology of Cognitive Dissonance. I think it's important for us to understand that. And the Hobby Lobby, I have that link as well, because I think that's going to be good news. It's good news that somebody's resisting. From Zero Hedge, Secret Service agents in Obama's detail sent home from Netherlands after night of drinking. Now that's just for free news of the weird there. Mark Dice, Glenn Beck predicts the New World Order is imminent, but Bilderberg isn't involved. It's all Russia's doing. See, and this is, more evidence, yeah. They've got Glenn Beck on board here. The neocons are being used in this cycle of hatred and fear, and they are selling the idea that, yeah, it's not the Bilderbergs, it's all Russia's doing. Sure. From RT America, IRS, Bitcoins are property, not currency. Yeah, the IRS wants to tax Bitcoins, in case you hadn't heard that yet. You might be interested to know that. From David Icke, cancer clinics becoming inaccessible due to Obamacare. From RT America, is Alaska going to be returned to Russia? This is what freaks a lot of people out and has kind of fed this fear. David Icke, New World Disorder, Global Unrest, and American Leadership. And, according to Benjamin Fulford, the Americans are kind of the joker in the deck, and it's kind of unsure what is going to happen in America. Fulford says the rest of the world is going to be free, is going to be restored, but, hey, all of us Americans, we are going to have to contribute to this process. From Donald Pearl and Red Ice Radio, Agenda 21 minions are coming for your water. The globalists murder Detroit through various free trade agreements. More information about headed in the Agenda 21 direction through these treaties. And I mentioned the TPP yesterday and how to use the JBS website to register your wish that your congressmen, senators vote against the fast track. From Drudge Report, abortion fight haunts Obamacare. This is just another perspective on the difficulties with Obamacare and the difficulties with abortion being funded by people who object to abortion. From RT America, Georgia law would give private companies unprecedented influence over probation system. So, yeah, for our good news, as I mentioned, Harry Reid will refund campaign for gifts. And this is I'm including this in good news to show that, when we apply pressure, it does have an effect. I think a lot of us have become lazy and discouraged, unwilling to participate in the process of our republic moving forward because we've been made to believe that our opinions don't matter, our actions don't count. Well, they do. They do. And when we apply pressure, point things out, kick and scream, things eventually will change. And of course, we have God defending us too, which really is the weight that tips the scales. Hobby Lobby contraceptive case goes before Supreme Court. And again, I'm ending with this as good news. Why is it good news? It's not decided yet, as far as I know. It's good news because Hobby Lobby is resisting the system, is saying, no, I'm not going to pay for something that is contrary to my fundamental beliefs. And may God bless and vindicate Hobby Lobby, even if the Supreme Court doesn't rule in their favor. I believe that blessing will be coming to them and to us all, as we do insist on liberty and take a stand somewhere. Find a line and stand there and don't move. Thank you for tuning in for today's 99th Monkey Liberty News. Yeah, sometimes weeping may endure for a night, but the book of Psalms tells us that joy will come in the morning. Everything ends at some point. Hoping that you will love one another, take care, and get out there and enforce the Bill of Rights.